Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TEACHERCAST Educational Broadcasting Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TEACHERCAST your home for professional development. Tonight, we have the co-authors of a fantastic new book called Releasing Leadership Brilliance, Breaking Sound Barriers in Education. And tonight, we're going to be talking all about the great things that's happening in today's leadership environment. But first, I want to bring on my co-host, Mr. Sam Patterson. Sam, how are you today? How is the brand new school year for you?
The brand new school year is off to a great start. Lots of super exciting stuff happening. The vibe on my campus is really energetic. So, yeah, I'm in a really good place.
And how is your makerspace doing?
My makerspace is rocking.
Nice.
We have started the Made for Equity project where our second graders are learning to sew, and then we are going to use sewing to create products to sell on an Etsy shop.
That's pretty cool.
And those funds are going to go to fund nonprofits focused on equity issues. So it gives us an opportunity to talk about those things in second grade, and it gives them something to do in response to those conversations.
I bet the kids have a good time learning about that.
They really do. They're very excited about it. It's something they absolutely believe in, and they don't understand how anyone wouldn't really be for equity for everyone.
That is a good point there, Sam. You know, Sam, I was thinking today, 3 weeks ago, when we came back to our new season, we started to talk a little bit about leadership. We did a fantastic show talking all about instructional technology coaches and how they're not only educators, but they really are the leaders in their school district. And last week, we talked a little bit about mentoring and how you can be a mentor to a colleague, maybe a student teacher, or somebody else in the district to help lead them forward. There's a theme here, Sam, that we're going back to. I want to introduce our co-hosts. Again, they are the co-authors of the new book, Releasing Leadership Brilliance, Breaking the Sound Barrier in Education. I want to bring on Marcitea, Reilly, and Simon Bailey. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the TechEducator Podcast.
Hi there, Jeff. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for having us. Good to be with you.
Very good to be with you.
Thank you guys so much for being on here today. Marcitea, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am an educator, been an educator all my life. I retired early, and so now I'm doing, I'm writing, authoring, doing leadership coaching, and speaking. So those are the kinds of things I do. And it's been a real joy to write this book with Simon, which just finished.
Simon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I just do whatever Marcitea tells me to do. How about that?
He does it well, too.
I used to work for Disney for a number of years, left Disney about 15 years ago, and I travel all over the world teaching individuals how to lead differently. And I have the honor of working with Marcitea, who's one of the smartest people that I know. And by the way, I'm a city guy. Marcitea lives on a farm, and I went out to the farm, and she put me to work. I'm just saying.
I did.
Quite the experience.
Now, we don't want to get sidetracked here, but I've got a ranch. And I spent the weekend clearing brush at the ranch. So Marcitea, what's on your farm?
We have cattle. So actually we're a ranch also. But you know, people don't relate to ranch so well. So I told Simon we have an active farm, but have grandkids and we have cattle and cows and calves. They have goats, they have pigs, we've got crops, we've got the whole thing.
Hey, Marcitea, wow. I would imagine that being on a cattle farm requires a lot of leadership from you. Let's talk. How's that one?
You're doing your job, man. You're doing a good job.
What a segue.
Right? He is a pro, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about different ways that we can gain in our leadership skills. How about that one, Sam?
I like that.
Again, Releasing Leadership Brilliance, Breaking Sound Barriers in Education.
Yeah.
What are some of the sound barriers that need to be broken, guys?
Well, actually, Sam's talking a lot about them.
Cattle?
No. He's been talking about how you break the sound barriers of giving really great instructional experiences to students. So often in our schools, we build schools around what's best for what adults think are best for adults, and we don't really take into consideration the child's experience and talking to the children and saying, what helps you learn and what hinders you in learning, and how can we connect you to the content we want to teach you. So Sam's a really good example of breaking sound barriers in instruction. He's taking second graders and he's teaching them all kinds of really wonderful real world stuff that is absolutely a great example of breaking sound barriers.
And is that really what leadership is about, Sam? It's getting on the level of your people that you're working with and trying to relate? Or not?
I really think about it as empowering your partners, right?
Yeah.
And it's work that has become more important to me the younger I've gone. I thought that I did it a lot with my high schoolers, but I find that when I'm working with my first and second and third graders, I can tell whether or not they're empowered in a lesson, because if it ends up in a place I didn't anticipate, they are empowered. If it ends up exactly where I thought it would end up, I controlled that lesson. So the leadership is really giving them an opportunity to have their voice in the room and to, have their peers hear them and really make decisions with them instead of having me make a bunch of decisions for them.
Now, Simon, when we're looking at leadership here, you being a former sales director at Disney have worked with a large number of people that you had to be in charge of. Is leadership different in large group numbers versus, say, leading a team of 3 or 4 teachers?
No, it's not. It really comes down to creating the conditions of a healthy culture where everyone can thrive no matter what age or stage or tenure they may have in an organization.
And what are some of the things that we can do to pick up, other than read the book, what are some of those things that we can do to pick up some of these leadership skills? Because many of our teachers are looking to move out of that classroom into a leadership role, or maybe have leadership roles put upon them. What are some of the first things that a teacher can do to pick up some leadership skills as they go through their tenure?
Yeah, Marcieta and I teach a very simple framework that is built around understanding their brilliance. So their personal brilliance is to understand the weight of what they've been called to do and really tap into that. What's the purpose of you leading? Then the second thing is, how do you think about collaborative brilliance, where you give a hand up, not just a hand out, by encouraging everyone to come together in a collaborative measure, in a collaborative way. Then the second thing is, third way is, how do you create team brilliance? And that is, how do you leverage the best of what everybody brings to the table? How do we move from a me culture to a we culture? And then finally, how do we really unleash student brilliance by becoming student-centered instead of teacher-directed?
Sam, I got to tell you, with all these shows, it comes back to about being all about the student.
Totally.
Right, it's, that whole recognizing the central humanity of everyone in the room and honoring it by giving them an equal voice. We can do that work for the rest of our lives, and there'll still be plenty left to do.
Totally.
Marcieta, what are some of the pain points in this process? I mean, as we're going through and picking up these skills, or identifying some of these skills that we need to improve on ourselves, what are some of the challenges that we might face in our learning process?
When we talk to educators now, we hear them talk a lot about wanting to change the culture of the school. The culture is, cordial, but they're not bringing their professional presence. They're not really they're not focusing on student learning and taking responsibility for helping not only themselves get really good at instruction, but also helping their colleagues so that all the children get great learning experiences. So one of the pain points is, or the complaints that we get from the people we work with, are we want to change the culture of the school to be more empowering. And that's the exact word that Sam had. And for me and for us, empowering means that the adults feel confident that they can make a difference, they feel competent because they know what to do, and then they take the responsibility to actually step up and speak up about things that they think need to happen or can happen, or help each other learn to be even better than they already are. So one of them is culture. A second one is really, we hear a lot of complaints about teaming. We have all these professional learning communities in schools, but what I see most often when I visit schools is that teachers are in these nice little groups, but they're not looking at student work. They're not talking about instruction and how well their kids are learning. What they're doing is they're planning, discipline stuff, or they're planning assemblies, or they're trying to organize how to distribute testing materials. And so they're really into management things. And when you can get the team, the power of teaching is when you get this group of professionals who really get together and they talk about and they look at and they get serious about helping each other be the best teacher they can to get the kids to learn what we want them to learn.
All right, so let me see if I can put a real world scenario here, because that's what we're talking about when it comes to leadership here. Let's assume, and I'm not sure if I should direct this question to Marcitea or Simon here, but let's assume that Sam has a herd of cattle that he needs to move.
Can there be llamas?
Okay, let's assume that Sam has a herd of llamas that he needs to move. Does he need to get down and act like a llama before trying to influence the llamas to move forward with him? Does he lead from the back of the pack with the pack, or does he pull the pack into the other pen that he needs his llamas to be in?
Well, you know, Jeff, the real answer is it really depends on what you want the llamas to be able to do. Because if it's just like to literally follow you, all you have to do is teach them that food comes out of a certain can and then walk around with that can. But that's not very inspirational, is it?
All right, let's go back to cattle. I think I can get that.
Well, actually, Jeff, it works the same way with cattle. So.
I think what's really interesting, Marcitea and I have discovered that it's never the job of a leader to motivate anyone to do anything. Leaders invite people on a journey to discover themselves while they're following the leader. So the leader, he or she demonstrates the behavior that says, I'm for you, I am leading, but I also want you to follow me as we discover together, because leadership is both caught and leadership is taught.
You know, a similar thing that happens in the classroom, I find that one of the only ways as a teacher I can fail, like absolutely fail, is if I try to make a student do a thing. Because then there are actually an infinite number of things that are not that thing that student can then choose to do.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You know, and oftentimes when I'm working with teachers, I've worked as a technology teacher before, and this really happened a lot then. Teachers would ask for step-by-step directions on how to do a thing, and I would give them a very short set of goal-based directions, because as soon as I give you step-by-step directions, then it's my job to make sure that those directions are up to date with your software and this and this and this. That's a recipe for failure, and it teaches the students that how to do something comes from way outside of themselves when it's all on the screen anyway. So here's how you do it. But that's a difficult, it's not a comfortable thing. Like, we'd like to have that set of directions, but that set of directions is really authority. And if you accept that set of directions, you cede your own authority, right? If you reject that set of directions, then you're asserting your own authority. And I want to have a situation where my students are very comfortable asserting their own authority.
Well, you know, in our model, we really teach the people who want to be leaders to really know themselves well. In fact, that's what we believe you have to do first. It's it's knowing your values, your beliefs, what your vision is. Now, sometimes you can't know that until you actually have kind of lived through it. But always about being reflective as you're working. So if a teacher wants to be in a leadership role and they're thinking about, what kind of a leader they want to be, they're always looking around at what leaders are doing that they like, and what are those characteristics, and then saying, I know, I want to be a leader who is clear in their communication or something, whatever it is. But they have to understand themselves well, and then they get really grounded and authentic. And it's kind of like Sam said, all leaders have different kinds of characteristics, but when you want to pull, or you want to be an authentic and true to yourself, and then people kind of respect you. They get that you're coming from your core, and it's not just because you're doing something because somebody thought you should do it this way.
We're talking today to Marcitea Reilly and Simon Bailey about their brand new book, Releasing Leadership Brilliance. You can go to releasingleadershipbrilliance.com to learn all about them. One of the questions that often comes up with leadership is, and I'll use Sam as the analogy here, is it easier for Sam to start as a llama and then lead the pack? Or is it easier for Sam to come in not as a llama, but then say, okay, here's my vision, go with me? I want to introduce
Go ahead and restate that question without the llama in it, please.
Okay, so is it easier for Sam to have a herd of cattle? I want to bring on somebody who's thoroughly confused now at this conversation. Rob Pennington, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing well, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on here. We're talking a lot about how to become a leader in a school district here. And you recently, I don't want to say you didn't have a choice in the matter, but you came out of the tech coaching world and you were thrusted into the position of assistant principal. And so in the analogy that I was trying to get Sam to go with me on, you were a llama and you suddenly had to lead the llamas. What was that transition like from being one of the pack to, okay, now they're looking at you for guidance? And it was in the middle of the year, correct?
My first transition was in the middle of the year. I actually went from middle school, where I was a teacher and a tech coach, to an elementary school. So that was a big transition, where people were looking to me, and it's different. I mean, especially because in our district, in elementary school, it is an instructional, the focus is really on curriculum and instruction. So going from a 6th grade reading, 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher to now a K-5 instructional leader, and having 25 teachers looking to me for guidance, there was a lot that the learning curve was big. But I think that going at it from a service leadership, I'm there to support you. And honestly, the technology really made a huge difference.
How so?
Because whenever anybody needed support with technology, I was able to support them, which actually built my relationship with the teachers. That was one of the things I've always said, is I was able to build relationships by supporting them with, instructional technology.
And that's great that, if we can go back to the example here, Sam, having that early connection with the group, in this case for Rob, certainly helped the situation.
Right. I mean, I think connections to groups are going to help you with any of this, because the more experience you can draw on, the better. Going back to what Marcitea and Simon were saying, that kind of knowing yourself, that doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? All of us need to have other professionals that we work with, that we trust, that we can talk to, and we can say, this thing happened today, what do you think? Or I'm pretty sure I just totally messed this up, how can I fix this, right? Like, you have to have those people not only, within your close circle, but also your extended circle that you can reach out to.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that culture and connection is the emotional glue of all relationships. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of communication, but there's very little connection, and the connection is the heart of the matter.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? How do you start that process, Simon? How do you make sure that the relationships that you're forming are the right ones?
Yeah, so one of the things we discovered when we interviewed principals is this whole concept of listening loudly. We talked to one principal in the Boston area, and what she said, she had to really put aside how she saw things. And instead of telling, she began to ask. Instead of hearing, she began to listen. And in the asking and the listening, together they discovered a deeper connection by releasing the need to always be right, but to be open to what wanted to emerge and to discover together how we can collaborate as a team.
Right. It's about being curious and asking questions that are, getting to know them personally, getting to know others personally, caring about them, showing that you care about them. And it's also asking people, telling people, and recognizing the strengths that they have and saying, you're really good at inspiring kids, Sam. Tell me, how do you plan that? So that you're asking them the deeper questions to think more deeply about their own practice. And and in the process, you learn a lot about great teaching, and they learn a lot about themselves, because often what they're doing is intuitive anyway. And so they learn from themselves about what they're doing intentionally that's really working.
Rob, talk to us a little bit about your journey here. When you went from being a middle school tech coach to a assistant principal in an elementary school, did you have the opportunity to have any of those conversations? It was clearly a new building for you, new role, but as we said earlier, it was in the middle of the school year. Did you have a chance to actually, back up before taking that step forward? Or are you planning to do that at the beginning of this school year?
Well, this is my third year now, and it's in a new school, which so building those relationships, we're starting over again. But one of the things that it's in the same district, so they have had the opportunity to ask their friends in the district about me. They've heard about me, so I come with a positive reputation, which is a good start. But I think that it's really important. So over this summer, I met with as many teachers as I could. And I just talked with them, and really to find out the culture and the pulse of the school, but also to build those relationships. And one of the things I found that really helped was asking questions to really understand, not to respond. And I think that was that really gave me some clarity around the school, because I wasn't just like listening to give them a response. I was actually listening to give me a better understanding of what I needed to know going into the school year.
Interesting.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
It
That
is
you would
awesome.
take time, especially over the summertime, to connect. That speaks volumes. And that says a lot about you as a leader.
Thanks.
Talk to us a little bit about the book Releasing Leadership Brilliance. How did it come together? Why did you guys select this topic? How did you guys put everything down and really get your thoughts out on paper here?
Marcieta, you want to tell our story?
No, I want you to you tell a story about the metaphor, because the metaphor really came from you, and that was actually the start of it.
So Marcieta and I came together, and we realized that we really thought a lot alike as it relates to leadership. So when we looked at the flight metaphor, Captain Chuck Yeager was the first human to fly faster than the speed of sound back in October 1947. He broke the sound barrier. And so when we looked at that, we said, well, what happened as a result? All of a sudden, the technology and everything as it relates to airplane and air flight literally transformed, because one human being took it upon themselves to break the sound barrier. So we started saying, what is it that educational leaders can do to break the sound barriers in the education system and really transform school culture? So when we began to work on the framework of weight, lift, thrust, drag, the four forces of flight that break the sound barrier, we're like, oh my goodness, that's it. leaders have to understand how they can tap into their brilliance and break the sound barriers. So we have 22 case studies of educators who we believe broke the sound barrier over a 5-year period, had sustainable results, many blue ribbon schools, and it was interesting to talk with them. And then we developed 12 tools that we really felt that could be used immediately. And then we based it on some of the research and the framework of the National Association of Secondary School Principals, which allowed us to really look at this breaking ranks framework and breakthrough schools to really solidify this whole concept of releasing leadership brilliance. Mm-hmm. What did I forget, Marcitea?
No, you did good explaining it. Okay. The breaking ranks research is really strong, and it's been in use for I think about 15 years now. And so we know what we can do. These are schools that were low performing, and then principals with, one head, two hands, 2 feet, they were able to really change these schools from being low performing to high achieving. And it's really remarkable, the stories that you hear, and we wanted to inspire people with these stories, but we also wanted to give them kind of to understand the skills, the concrete stuff. We wanted to make this breaking ranks research more concrete. So what are the behaviors and the skills and the strategies that these principals used over across all these different stories? What are the common threads? And so we found 4 common threads, and those are the ones we talked about. It's knowing yourself well. It's learning how to collaborate. It's helping teacher teams develop that are focused on student learning. And then finally, taking the time to look around and really look at your policies and procedures and see what is working for kids learning and what isn't. And if it's working, do more of it. And if it isn't working, get rid of it. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What did you guys learn about each other when writing this book? What did you guys learn about yourselves? I guess maybe is a better question.
Ebony and Ivory. Anyway.
That's right.
I'm a city guy. Marcitea lives on a farm with Larry, who she's been married to for 47 years. And what we realized, we came together because we see education the same way. It's the equalizer. So it didn't matter what our ethnicity was. We believed a lot alike. And when we put aside our differences and said, what do we agree on? We really realized that we were really thinking and speaking the same language.
That's right. It was lots of fun to work together. Simon has, as you can tell, has this great way with words and language, and he always has a spin that's interesting. And so he would do the first draft of a chapter, and then I'd go through and I'd put in the school stories and the research, and then we'd kind of hammer it together.
Nice.
Put it together that way. So it really worked. It was very smooth, and we had a wonderful time working together.
So we were on a mini Skype calls on a Saturday morning for 2 to 3 hours, and and if you guys know, I like to cut up and have a good time. So we were cutting up and working, but we were having fun.
Well, you can certainly tell that the chemistry is there. The website here is releasingleadershipbrilliance.com. Guys, I had a chance to check out. I didn't get a chance to go cover to cover with the book, but I read a lot of this and definitely connect with these people. Great book, amazing authors. And the one thing I will say, if you go over to releasingleadershipbrilliance.com, you will get a chance to see an amazing YouTube video of Simon on a four-wheeler. Am I saying that right, Simon?
That's right.
You have the opportunity of working with this duo here by going over to releasingleadershipbrilliance.com. Before we sign off and say thank you, I'll give you guys the last words here. Marcitea, what do you hope people take away from this book after reading everything here? What is your hope that people take away from this book?
Oh, I hope that that we can give. Well, first of all, I believe that leadership is an activity, not a position. So I hope every educator uses these kinds of the communication skills that we talk about in the book to really relate to each other and bring their full presence to whatever their role is in the school. I mean, you look at Sam, he is a great leader, and he's doing wonderful things. He may not have the title of principal. I don't know if he does or not, but he's doing wonderful things. And so we want our book to inspire not just people who are in official roles, but all educators to really step into being their best, bringing their best A game to the kids.
Even being teacher leaders.
Yes, absolutely.
Marcieta, I'm just going to warn you here. I know you're new to the show, but we have this unwritten policy that if you encourage Sam enough, he brings the puppets out on the show. And I'm seeing this thing pop up here. Sam, what is this that you're holding?
This is a new addition. This is a caterpillar puppet.
Oh, look at that!
And it's adorable.
Caterpillar? That's a very hungry caterpillar.
Just about. I mean, we're certainly using that one.
You're on the wrong topic, Sam. We need a caterpillar.
A caterpillar. Hey, Jeff, that reminds me.
Oh, no.
I've got a joke that's on topic.
Okay. Wait. Eclipse it.
Oh, that's so close. But no,
sorry.
that was last week or the week before. What kind of ship can sink an entire navy?
What kind of a ship can sink an entire navy?
Leadership.
Right? Robert's got it. Leadership.
Leadership.
Oh,
nice. Showing up soon on puppetstelljokes.com.
And that noise right there was people driving their cars. Simon, what do you hope people get out of this book? Again, releasingleadershipbrilliance.com. Simon, what are your goals for everything here?
We want people to really take away three things. Number one, never blame it on the budget. So many times you blame it on the budget. There's not enough money. You can find a way. Number two, understand that everything you need to succeed, you have it within you, but you have to look beyond yourself and really connect with the team. And then the third thing that Marcieta and I really want teachers to take away is no longer look at students through the eyes of poverty. Look at them through the lens of what's possible and tap into that brilliance by really saying, what can we do instead of what we can't do?
Very, very cool. Again, releasingleadershipbrilliance.com. Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Where can we get a hold of all the great stuff that you're doing, Rob?
You can follow me on Twitter at RobPennington9 and or robpennington.weebly.com.
Excellent. And Sam, this isn't the last podcast that we're going to be doing on leadership. Next week, I believe we're going to be taking a look at a controversial topic that was recently brought up by the New York Times. Talk to us a little bit about what we're going to be dealing with and discussing next week on the show.
Oh, the New York Times is just making up kerfuffles because they're tired of talking about everything else. I mean, we're going to be talking about the relationship between ed tech and teachers, and seeing if perhaps the New York Times is correct, and the insidious influence of coffee mugs has caused teachers to permanently skew instruction.
I'm sorry, Sam, can you say that again? I have to move the podcaster behind me. Hold on.
Right.
Say that one more time. Go ahead.
Right, I was not paid by Pink Floyd to wear this t-shirt. I'm sorry.
Very, very cool. Sam, where do we get a hold of you?
Find me in all my things at mypaperlessclassroom.com.
Excellent. And of course, thank you guys out there for spending time with TeacherCast. We are live each and every Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern on TeacherCast.tv. My name is Jeff Bradbury. There's, of course, several great ways that you can reach out and be a part of this and all of our shows. You can find us on Twitter at TeacherCast. Leave us a voice message over at teachercast.net/voicemail. Email us at feedback@teachercast.net and continue sharing this on all of our subscription channels, teachercast.net/iTunes and teachercast.net/ TechEducator.com/YouTube. I hope you take a moment to enjoy the beginning of this school year. There's 185 more days to go. The website is releasingleadershipbrilliance.com. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of everybody here on the show, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.